Hey everybody, welcome back. So now that we know a little bit about string concatenation, let's talk about string interpolation. So string interpolation is just a cleaner way to output data, to log data, and to manipulate strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back into the console.writeLine, and we're going to get rid of this message variable. And just to show you what's going to happen is I'm just going to use this special character that allows us to perform some string interpolation. It's essentially just a $sign. And I can use that to represent variables in our print statement, like so, with this curly brackets and then the variable name that I'm trying to print. In this case, it's username. So let's print this out real quick just to make sure that we get the same message. Cool. So as seen in the previous video, we can see that we can use string interpolation, and it's preferably a lot cleaner to use than string concatenation or the traditional way of printing out strings, such as the string composite formatting, which you can look up in the .NET resources. But a more useful case of this is, let's say we were building something called like maybe a web scraper, and we needed to access a URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this, and I'll declare some string variables. We'll call it a base URL. And what I'll call the base URL is something like www.mywebsite.com. And then I can create another string variable. Let's call it an endpoint. And then let's do API. And let's say we have a controller that we wanted to use. And this is more in advanced topics such as building MVC applications or APIs, which we won't get into detail right now, but just to kind of give you guys a use case of it, this would be a great example to kind of dig into. So the controller, we can say probably users, and then we can add in a user ID as well. And I'll just declare this as a type string for now. We can call it, user4. Now I have these four variables that we declared of type string, and what I can do is I can concatenate them within this print statement. So let's say I had the base URL, and I can add in the following endpoint. Just copy and paste so we don't run into any errors. You can also paste in the controller. And I can also paste in the user ID. Oops. So we have that, and I'm just going to add in a version in here, so we can just put v1. And now when I do a .NET run, you can see that we've pretty much just built a URL. We have www.mywebsite.com/API/v1/users, and let's put a /users, just to kind of give you guys a good representation of what a proper URL looks like. So we have the entire website here, and it's broken down into strings. So if you were writing a web scraper to access this endpoint, you'd be able to pretty much access every single portion of the URL through these variables. So let's say that an API endpoint changed from v1 to v2. All we would have to do is change this to v2, and our actual string variable that we have is now version 2 of the API. Another thing that we can do is we can take this entire output and we can store it in a variable as well. We can call it main URL. Paste that, And let's end it with a semicolon. And all we will need to do is paste the main URL into the output. We can see that when we execute .NET Run, we get the same result. So that's a basic rundown of string interpolation and pretty much how we can use it to our benefit. For example, one would be web scraping. Another one might be error handling. So if there was an error somewhere within the statement, we can print out something like this. Let's do a system.console.writeLine again. And we can have some error logging. We can say error with user, and then let's not forget the $, our special characters, so that we can perform string interpolation. And we can say for, or not for, but user ID. And the great thing about this is that if the user ID happens to change, or we happen to be searching for a certain user ID, that user ID would be logged into this message right here if we were declaring a logger. So let's do a .NET Run. And we can see that there's an error output here, error with user 4, which correlates to this user ID right here that we assigned the user ID to. So with that being said, I'll see you in the next lecture.